Welcome, whichever platform you're watching on. If you are watching on YouTube or on Facebook or on any of the platforms that allow you to do so, please share that the mother of all talk shows is now underway. Share it with all your friends, all your contacts. And if you are listening on KPFK 90.7 FM across Los Angeles and Southern California, you are especially welcome. The first show went out last weekend and was apparently a very considerable success. So we hope to grow that model, not just through all of California, but right across the United States. Spread the word. As the Pope said to me, when my good wife Gayatri and I had an audience with His Holiness Pope Francis just a couple of days ago, we spoke principally about Gaza with him and with a variety of cardinals and archbishops, one of them the Foreign Secretary of the Vatican, the Pope's Foreign Secretary, a Liverpool man, Archbishop Galloway by name, a Liverpool man of great sagacity, who heard at some length my views on the foreign policy being pursued by Western countries and the answer that should come from the Holy See. Maybe more about all of that later. I also met a man who might be, after a long life, for Pope Francis, the next Pope. And he made some very startling accusations against the British government indeed. Maybe the time will come when I'm able to impart them to you. But the big news tonight is the helicopter accident or assassination of the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Raisi, along with the Foreign Minister of Iran, rather foolishly traveling in the same helicopter as the President. There were 3 helicopters on the trip. It was a trip to inaugurate a dam on the Iranian-Azerbaijani border, and there were 3 Iranian helicopters. Obviously, the leaders should have been spread out across all 3, but were not, and now one of those 3 helicopters is missing. It's not yet clear whether President Raisi and the Iranian Foreign Minister are still alive. It seems unlikely. Western sources seem strangely certain that they are not. The war room of the Mossad put out a tweet with no words, but just a helicopter as an image. Azerbaijan is Israel's biggest friend in the region. 40% of Israel's oil comes from Azerbaijan. The military, political, economic collaboration between the nominally Muslim country, whose capital of Baku is iconic in Islamic and indeed broader social and political history, is in the pocket of Netanyahu and Tel Aviv. So I wouldn't have been sending the president of Iran to an event with the presidency of Azerbaijan in the first place. I certainly wouldn't have been sending them on a helicopter, in thick fog, in very bad weather. And that may very well be all that there is to it. But given who and what Azerbaijan is, given the number of very important leaders of Iran who have met with accident or assassination already in recent times, there must be a very real possibility that this is an act of war by Israel. We'll be talking to Professor Mohammed Marandi in just a few minutes' time to get the view from Tehran. But the speculation is mounting on social media that this is a spark which may create a fire, which may burn the region and could even in the end burn the world. You could see why Netanyahu would do it. Benny Gantz, the opposition leader sitting in his war cabinet, has given Netanyahu an ultimatum that if he does not complete the job, by the first week in June. And by complete the job, he means the annihilation of 2.3 million Palestinians trapped in the open-air concentration camp that is Gaza. If he does not extirpate them or drive them from the land, annex the Gaza Strip, as they have already annexed the illegally occupied eastern part of Jerusalem and the Golan Heights, which will forever belong to the Syrian Arab Republic. Gantz says if Netanyahu does not actually annex the Gaza Strip and thereby become the owner, they think, of the oil and gas deposits off Gaza, then he will collapse the coalition. New elections will be inevitable, and Netanyahu's political demise all but certain. So a war with Iran, which would undoubtedly be the result if Israel killed Raisi, if indeed he is dead, would suit Netanyahu rather well. And if we'd been writing this poll that we've got running right now, then we might well have asked the question, cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits from the death, if death it is, of the Iranian president? Let's postpone further ruminations on that subject until we've met President Raisi and move to the subject of Ukraine. First of all, our poll. Should we stop paying for Ukraine's war? Yes or no? Answer on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, or on my Twitter, where 12,000 people did. That's my X with my blue tick. Or on the YouTube community poll, where a staggering 28,000 people have voted, or on the YouTube stream that you may be watching this show from now. 41,866 people have voted. They have voted overwhelmingly by tens of thousands that, yes, we should stop paying for Ukraine's war. But on Twitter, it was a different kind of result, which means either that the deep state and the Ukrainian war bots, the corgis, the dogs of NAFO, only have enough hands to try to influence a poll on Twitter, or Twitter are complicit in allowing multiple voting from bots that the other platforms are not allowing to happen. That's the only explanation for the fact that on Telegram, 97% of you think that we should stop paying for Ukraine's war. On the YouTube community poll, 93% think we should stop. On the YouTube stream, 96% say we should stop. But on Twitter, only 43% say we should stop paying for Ukraine's war, and 57% say we should continue. So, Mr. Musk, which is it? Are you allowing fraudulent voting on polls by robots in a way that your competitors, other platforms, are not doing? Or are NAFO such idiots that despite this very same thing happening last week and many other weeks over the last few years, that the NAFO fools don't know that to influence this poll, you have to vote on all the platforms that the poll is running on. It's not surprising that the great majority of respondents think we should stop paying for Ukraine's wars, because Ukraine's war is lost. Lost in exactly the way predicted when it began by the mother of all talk shows and by sundry other commentators who knew the balance of force in this war, who knew the limitations of little Grant Shapps and little Rishi Sunak and little Emmanuel Macron and little soldier Schultz. We knew that these were little men of little stature and with little political strength in their own countries. We knew that they were not going to enter a war against hypersonically weaponized nuclear superpower Russian Federation, backed as it is to the hilt by the People's Republic of China. We can do maths in a way which our leader writers, our teenage scribblers on the front pages, and our little men in charge of our national affairs clearly cannot. So, what's the latest situation in the war? Well, you'll remember Gonzalo Lira, our dear friend, now departed, murdered by the Ukrainian regime of Volodymyr Zelensky, using our money, using our political, military, diplomatic cover and support, who runs a terror regime inside his own country, who imprisons, exiles, and murders anyone who stands against him, and who is from the 20th of May an illegitimate ex-president of the Ukraine. His term has run out. Of course, he's got the permission of Blinken to go on pretending to be the president on the principle that there's no one else, according to Blinken, that can challenge him, which is a very odd approach to take to elections that are supposedly involved in a war for democracy. You're not going to have an election in Ukraine because Blinken says Zelensky is the best president that you could have. Foreign interference in other people's governmental, democratic affairs, anyone. Well, Zelensky may not be here for very much longer because the revolt that is gathering pace in the inner circles of power in Kiev are having to be handled in ever more remarkable and unusual ways. You get sent to London with a very large bag of money, supposed to stuff your mouth with gold so that you say little or nothing. Or you are threatened, you are jailed, you are tortured, you are captured, disappeared, like many of the critics of the Ukrainian leader have already been. But it will not stave off the inevitable. This evening, a vast Russian army is but 20 kilometers and closing on the overwhelmingly Russian city of Kharkov, from which my dear friend Gonzalo Lira used to speak to us with some regularity and massive audiences. Well, if Kharkov is stormed in the next hours, days, or weeks, I hope that a suitable memorial will be placed in a prominent place to the brave man, Gonzalo Lira, murdered for telling the truth about the Zelensky regime. Only time then to talk about the conversations we had in the Vatican on the subject of Gaza. Everybody in the Vatican is seized by the slaughter of the innocents that is going on. It is Herod-like. There is a magnificent painting inside the Vatican, which we filmed, in which Herod is literally seen plunging his dagger into the neck of a newborn babe. Netanyahu is the King Herod of the 21st century, is he not? What has this all been but a slaughter of the innocents? Has it not been a slaughter not seen since the Holocaust of the Second World War, where children are being killed faster than they were murdered, massacred, genocided in the Nazi Holocaust of the late 1930s and 40s? Of course, the numbers don't compare. 1 million children were massacred in the Holocaust. But the rate of murder of children is higher. The children who were murdered by the Nazis in the Holocaust were murdered over a period of 6 years. These children in Gaza have been murdered over a period of 6 months. The rate of murder of children and women in Gaza by people who themselves went through a Holocaust. And imagine that having gone through a Holocaust somehow gives you a license to perpetrate a Holocaust on other people, other defenseless people that you have conveniently anathematized, demonized, dehumanized, called human animals, called Amaleks, called a threat to humanity itself. Mr. Simon Schama, a man of whom I might have thought better if I had known more about him. I might have thought better based on my flimsy knowledge of him. Issued a tweet, a defamatory tweet, now with my lawyers, about me and this show just 24 hours ago. And these words are addressed to him. Mr. Schama, the fact that you have suffered a Holocaust makes what you are doing now and what you are supporting now worse. Not better, but worse. Because you knew uniquely what it is like to have a more powerful adversary seeking literally to extirpate you from the earth, to end your bloodline forever. You who support Israel's murders, and you're one of them, you should know that that card that you played against me is now devoid of any moral authority, is now bankrupt, is now in very real danger of turning into a laughingstock, those who continue to play it. The Palestinian people in Jabalia, camp I know well, continue to fight back, continue to take a heavy toll on the invading forces that have illegally occupied their illegally besieged land. The resistance in Lebanon continues to take a heavy toll on the forces of Netanyahu's murder gang close to the border and killing Lebanese civilians at will, as it has done, to my certain knowledge, since 1982 and before. The Yemeni resistance is finding new and ever more ingenious ways of intervening in support of the Palestinian people when no one else will. I'll be speaking in Parliament this coming week to the Defence Secretary, Little Grant Shapps, if that's the name he'll be travelling under come defence questions this week. And I'll be putting the finger on the fact that without parliamentary authority, without even permission to parliamentarians properly to question and hold to account the British government's role in this, I will be, because I'm not someone who can be stopped, you see, I will be asking Little Grant Shapps what the Americans used to call the $64,000 question. I suggest you look out for that question. Let's go for a short break, and then it's the one and only Professor Syed Muhammad Marandi, the Chair of American Studies at the University of Tehran. Stay tuned.